Screen is visible. Screen and voice audible, visible.
Yes, sir.
So if any problems, so that means audio related, this is screen related. So please inform immediately. Okay. So next one is a steps to create a servlet. So here we have to create the servlet class. That is, so in the previously we have seen that client server model. So client is going to send a request to the server. So server has to invoke the script, that is a servlet. So now servlet is going to process the request. So that means server is going to invoke the that web container. So servlet is going to be there in the web container. Okay, this servlet will process the request by taking that information through request object, and response is given through response object. Here request and response, these two are the objects. So for taking the input and giving the output. Okay, then here we will see how to create this servlet. So first steps to create a servlet example. So there are six steps to create a servlet example. These six steps are required for all the servers. So these steps can be in three ways. One is by implementing servlet interface, implementing servlet interface. Second one is by inheriting generic servlet class, then by inheriting HTTP servlet class. So these are the three ways. So first to directly implementing the servlet interface. So if you want to implement that servlet interface, you can. That is the first step. So second step is inheriting generic servlet. Already that one there, that structure everything is there. Just to inherit the properties of that generic servlet class. Okay, this is the second way of creating the servlet. The third one is by inheriting HTTP servlet class. Okay, this is also another way of acquiring the properties of HTTP servlet class. So by using that, by acquiring that, so you can create a servlet. Okay, these are the three ways. Then which one is better, easier for you? Then you can use any one of these three three ways. Okay, so but mostly used approach is by extending HTTP servlet. Okay, here there are three ways. So out of these three, this HTTP servlet. So inheriting this HTTP servlet mostly used because it provides HTTP request specific methods. So why the name itself indicates HTTP. So in the between the client and server model, request and response can be transferred through HTTP protocol, HTTP protocol, hypertext to transfer protocol. Okay, so here we have HTTP servlet. Then it is going to provide some specific methods like do get, do post, do head, do trace. Some methods are there. So it is providing this type of specific methods. That's why mostly this HTTP servlet, this class is inherited for implementing the servlet. Okay. Then next here we are going to use Apache Tomcat server in this example. So that is a free open source. It has some features. So most of the websites are developed in the starting stage in the testing and deploying in that stage. Apache Tomcat server is used because it is a free open source. So the steps are as follows. First, create a directory structure. First step, first we should create the directory structure. Then next to create a servlet. So after creating a directory, a folder, simply we can call it as a folder. Then next to create a servlet in that. The next to compile the servlet. So servlet is a Java, that is a Java program. Next to compilation. So compile that servlet. So next to create a deployment descriptor. So we'll see that web.xml something is required for that. We'll see one by one. Then next to start the server and to deploy the project. So after creating the deployment descriptor, next to start the server, that Apache Tomcat server, then deploy the project. Next to access the servlet. So these are the different steps. First to create the directory, folder, create the servlet, compile the servlet, create the deployment descriptor, start the server and deploy the project, access the servlet. So these are the different steps for creating a servlet. First step is a create a directory structure. So directory structure defines that where to put the different types of files. Here in this, not only a single file, it requires some different kind of files. So for a simple application, for a simple servlet example, it requires some supporting files. Okay, for multiple are there. So definitely we have to store all them in one folder, one directory. So that's why creating directory is required. Okay, so the directory structure defines that where to put the different types of files so that web container may get the information and respond to the client. So if all together in a directory, then that it is easier to get the information and responding to the client. So that's why creating directory structure is required. Okay, so different standards are there. Sun Microsystem defines a unique standard to be followed by all the server vendors. So we see that yes, this is a directory structure. First one is a web app. Okay, after installation of this Java and Apache Tomcat and database. Okay, in the C directory, this Apache Foundation one folder is going to be there. So in the lab, we will show that. But in my system, I will not install that. Okay, after installation, one folder will be created in the C local disk C Apache Foundation. Then folder name is Apache Foundation. If you open, so different folders are going to be there. Okay, web app is one of the folder inside that. So web applications, the folder name is a this is a predefined. So after installation, this will be created automatically. So don't create it. So within the web app, so create the directory structure. So that means you create a your own folder. Okay. So in that, create one more folder that is a webinf. So within the web app folder, so create your folder. So for example, experiment one. Okay, we in the lab experiments. So first experiment, for example, name. Okay, that means you can give any name to that, but you should easily identify whenever it is required. So like that, you can give a name to the folder. So that is a user defined folder. Inside that, you should create a webinf. So the folder name should be this capital letters. That means the name should be like this only. That is that the user has to create. So webinf for one folder, and whatever the files are required, HTML files or any resources or any images or any CSS files, all you can create in this folder. That means these all files should be along beside of this. Okay, this user defined folder is going to contain web inf folder and some files, HTML files or images or CSS files, whatever. Okay, then next to open the webinf folder, webinf folder. Next to create the classes folder, and a lib folder. Okay, so classes folder, the name should be like this only, small letters. So this is a library folder, user defined. You can give any name to this, no problem. But the name of this classes folder, the name should be small letters, classes. Okay. Next in webinf, you should create classes folder, and there should be web.xml. This is XML file. The name should be web.xml. Lib is optional, but this webinf folder should contain classes folder and web.xml. Clear? So next, to open the classes folder, then create the class file. So that means after creating the servlet, that is a Java file, after compilation, we get a class file. Okay, that class file should be there in classes folder. So you can create that Java file anywhere in your system. Finally, after compilation, that class file should be placed in classes folder. Okay, this is a directory structure. So first, in Apache Foundation, something you should find web app folder. Okay, inside open that, create a user defined folder, give a name, any name, then open that folder. So create a webinf folder, and if any HTML files are there for your application, so create all in this folder only. So that means with webinf folder, not inside of webinf. So outside of that means along with webinf. Next, open the webinf folder, create a classes folder, and create a web.xml folder file, web.xml file. So next, open the classes folder. Then after compilation of that servlet, you will get a class file. Then get that class file and store it in classes folder. Okay, this is a directory structure. First step. So what is the first step? So create a directory structure. If you follow this is a directory structure, then you can execute this. Otherwise, you will get errors. So that is a difficult to run your application. Okay, this is a explanation. So next one is after creating a directory structure, what second step is a create a servlet. So just to first to create the directory structure, no need to store the class file. Okay, first to let set up that directory structure. Second step is create a servlet. So create a servlet that this creating servlet anywhere in any disk, any location, no problem. So create a servlet. So there are three ways. Already I told you that. So here majorly these two are used: generic servlet inheriting generic servlet or inheriting HTTP servlet. So implementing that is somewhat difficult. So that's why you get the properties. So that by using this generic servlet or HTTP servlet. So HTTP servlet is widely used, okay, because this some extra methods it is supporting. That's why generic this HTTP servlet is used. And this is a creating a servlet. So here we have to write the coding part. You will see that example. So this is second step. So after directory creation, this creating servlet is the second step. So third step is a compilation. Here compile the servlet. Third step. So here compilation, you know how to compile that Java file. Okay, so for compiling the servlet, jar file is required to be loaded. So different servers provide different jar files. So this one is so Apache Tomcat. If it is Apache Tomcat, so jar file is servlet -ep.jar. So weblogic.jar for weblogic server. So Java that is a Glassfish server. So different, but here we will use this Apache Tomcat. So this is a free open source. That's why this one used for this servlet API.jar. This file is required. This file is required that have to be placed into the lib folder. Okay, so next there are two ways to load the jar file. One is a set class path. You know, in the Java, setting the class path. So set class path, then paste the jar file in the JRE lib that folder. Then put the Java file in any folder. After compiling the Java file, paste the class file of servlet in webinf classes folder. Okay, in this directory. Okay, so here we require two things. For the first time, we supposed to set the class path. For that, jar file is required. Jar file is required. Servlet -ep.jar for the first time. If you set permanently, for the second time, not required. The second time, only this class file is required. For the first time, this jar file and class file both are required. Okay, this jar file can be placed in the lib folder. That is a one option, and another one is by setting the class path. So this is a if you set the class path, that is a permanent one. So how many subnets are you are going to run? Then that will be there. That means no need to create that jar file for every servlet. If you set the class path, if you don't set the class path for every servlet application, we need to paste that jar file in the lib folder. Okay, I think first one is better, setting class path permanently. Okay, if you set the class path permanently, this class file is required. Just after compilation, we get the class file. Okay, that can be in any folder, no problem. After compiling the Java file, paste the class file. I will circulate in webinf classes directory. Clear? So which one? This one. So compiling the servlet. Compile after compilation, we get a class file. Just to paste it in webinf classes folder. So next one is a create the deployment descriptor. Yes, this is another step. So creating a deployment descriptor, that is a web.xml. The name should be web.xml. It is a XML file. So this deployment descriptor is an XML file. So from which web container gets the information about the servlet to be invoked. Okay. So here this web container is going to get the some information about that servlet from this web.xml. So first control transfer to the web.xml. So web.xml is going to transfer that to what a Tomcat or to the page. So everything can be through web.xml. Just it is a mediator. Okay, so web content is going to get the information from web.xml. This is important. This plays a major role. This is for transporting the data, requesting and response through web.xml. So this web content uses a parser to get the information from the web. Okay, that is many parsers, XML parsers such as SAX, DOM, pull. Okay, these are the different parsers. Already we have completed. I think you might have learned in the second unit. Okay, so SAX, simple API for XML, DOM, document object model. Okay, these two parsers. These are the XML parsers. Okay, so after creating the deployment descriptor, next one is start the server and deploy the project. So start the server and deploy the project. To start the Apache, this is a Tomcat server, just double click on the startup.batch file. So this will be there in the bin directory. So one time configuration for Apache Tomcat server. So you need to perform two tasks. One is a Java home setting, JRE home setting. Okay, this is a permanent. So change the port number of Tomcat. Okay, that optional. It is required. So 8080. Already I told you 8080 is a preferred port number. Okay, so this is for setting that class path permanently. So next one is how to deploy the servlet project. So copy that project and paste it in the web apps folder. Yes. So under Apache Tomcat. So but there are several ways to deploy the project. They are as follows. So by copying the context project folder into the web apps directory. Another one is by copying the var web application archive folder into the web apps directory. So by selecting the folder path from the server. So next by selecting the var file from the server. Okay, I will show that. So once experiments started, lab experiments, then I will show that. This here just theoretically you have to learn. Okay. So next how to access a servlet. So just to open the browser. So write this local host that host name here localhost colon port number here 8080. Okay, already I think we have seen that PHP. So that is a local host. Simply HTTP colon two classes local host. Then that server page will be shown. Here also same thing. Local host. Local host port number is required to mention. So context of that root. Then URL pattern of servlet. URL pattern of servlet that will be there in the web.xml. So which name, which pattern we mentioned in the web.xml. So that name is supposed to write in the URL. So like this, we can access that servlet. If nothing, that means you no errors. So nothing, everything is perfect. Then you will get the output after typing this URL. So it may be a registration page or login page or connecting to the database or whatever, storing something to the database, accessing something from the database, whatever the things related to this servlet. So everything. Okay, after typing this URL, you will get that information, input and output, everything. Okay, clear. So this is how servlet implemented. So what are the steps to deploy the servlet? That one completed. Next, how servlet works. Okay, so here we have to learn then how servlet works for understanding the servlet. So here we are going to get internal details about the first servlet program. So the server checks if the servlet is requested for the first time. If it is a first time, if yes, web container does the following things: load the servlet class, instance creation for the servlet class, calls the init method, again if any installations are required, passing the servlet config, so configuration that object. So okay, here first the server checks if the servlet request, that servlet request is for the first time. If it is yes, web container is going to do these tasks. What is that? Loading the servlet, loading the servlet class. So that is there in the classes folder. So loading the servlet class. Then next to create the instance for that servlet class. Second step. Then calls the init method here, passing servlet config object. Okay. This is if it is for the first time. If it is not for the first time, already this have done already. Else, just to call the service method, passing request and response objects. So these three are not required for the servlet which already called or which are already invoked. So just to call the service method by passing request object and response objects. Okay, so this is how a servlet works. Then next, the web container calls the directory method when it needs to remove the servlet, such as the time of stopping server or deploying the project. Yeah, after a service method, so nothing is required. Just you want to stop that just by calling which one destroy method. So that project, whatever servlet is loaded, then that will be removed from the memory. So clear? Yes, respond. Is it clear? Whether you are listening the class or not, what you are doing? No response. Huh? Only if you are active remaining or what you are doing. Okay, then next we'll see one a simple servlet. So important servlet methods here. First one is when servlet is first started up, it's init method is called through config object. So init should perform any necessary installations. If any necessary installations are required, so that can be done in the init method. So init is called only once and does not need to be thread safe. So every servlet request results in a call to service. We request object and response object. So service calls another method depending on three types of service requested. So the service is going to call another method. So that depending on the type of service requested, which kind of service is required, then that corresponding service will be called. Okay, so that means this service method depends on another one. So based on the request. So here that means that this can be override. This method is override. So based on service request. So service handles multiple simultaneous requests. So this can handle multiple simultaneous requests. So it and methods it calls must be thread safe. Your thread safe that is required. So when the servlet is shut down, destroy is called. Okay. So init method, service method, destroy method. So init method for necessary installations. Okay, this is called only once. So it does not need to be thread safe. But service method, if any request, if for every servlet request, the web container calls a service method. Okay, service method. So the service method calls another method. Okay, some various methods are there based on the request. So based on the request, so which request is required, then the corresponding method is called by the service method. Okay, so and this that means what we can say the service method is overriding by other method. Okay, so and one more thing you have to remember: the service handles multiple simultaneous requests at a time. Multiple requests can be processed. It just the service method calls another method for the one request. Then if one more request came to this, then it is going to call another method. Like that, multiple simultaneous requests can be processed at a time. So it this method must be thread safe. Here, thread safing is compulsory required for this. Okay, so after processing the request or multiple request, so finally the servlet will be deleted by calling. That means the web container is going to call the destroy method for deleting the servlet or shutdowning the servlet. So destroy is called only once. This is only once, but must be thread safe because other threads may still be in running. So you have to remember which one is thread safe, which one is not thread safe. Means in the installation, the init method does not need to be a thread safe, but service method and destroy method need to be a thread safe. So because multiple are running, okay, so that's why thread safe is required for service and destroy. Okay, clear. So these are the important servlet methods. Next, request, HTTP request. HTTP request. So when a request is submitted from a web page, so any request submitted from the web page, that means a login request or registration request or page request, something home page request. So it is almost always a get or post. Already I told you, if you want to submit something to the what server, the form. Here something means request means how can we submit the request in the form of a form creation. So form tag, using form tag. So to which attributes are important. One is a method, another one is a action. So method it may be a get or post. So that means here we can call it as a get or post, get request or post request. So you know the difference between get and post. In the PHP we discussed that. So which one is suitable, which one is preferred in the situation. If you want to send a sensitive data, post is used. Post so that information is not visible on the URL that will be added or transferred through the HTTP header. So that will be in hiding. But get, so whatever the information is there on the form that will be shown on the URL. So already we have seen the difference get versus post in the PHP. Same thing, same that explanation, same definitions, same usages here also. Okay, so it is almost always a get or post request. So HTTP form tag as attribute action whose value can be get or post. So the get action results in the form information put after your okay, you know that after question mark in the URL, that information enter is information will be visible. Okay, so like this. So for example, Google dot search which one you are searching, everything will be shown. So separated by this and symbol, various parameters. Only limited amount of information can be sent through this limited information. So put can send large amount of information and that will be in hidden. Okay, so that is about some HTTP request, how a request is transferred through get method or post method. So next servlet methods, important servlet methods. So service method dispatches the following kinds of requests. Already I told you service method can be overridden. Okay, it calls another method. So based on the request. So these are the different kind of request: delete request, get request, head request, options, put, post, trace. These are the different kind of requests. So a get request is dispatched to the do get. Okay, so service method, if a get request is came to the service, then it is going to transfer that to do get. So that means service is replaced by do get. Request is dispatched to do get. So do get method. This is a request object. This one is a response object. The post request is dispatched to do post. So there are two methods we usually overwrite: do get and do post. Do the same thing. So both purpose same thing. Do get to do post. If form submitted using get method, this method is called do get. If form submitted using post method, this method is called. In the PHP also same thing. Super global variables get and post. Here also same thing. This one do get, do post. Okay, this is a explanation how a servlet is created, how it is, how it will work, and what are the important methods. Okay, init method, service method, destroy method. Service method can be overridden, so the request can be dispatched to this delete to get to different requests, different kind of requests. Okay, then next you will see a simple example. Hello servlet, hello world servlet. Okay, so first, uh, first, right? This is a Java program. Servlet means a Java program. Simply, we can call it as a Java program. Java coding is will be there. Java and HTML coding will be there. So that HTML will be executed front end side. This Java code at the back end side. Okay, so Tomcat, that servlet engine will run this. So first, public class hello servlet. This is the name of the program. Hello servlet extends HTTP servlet. So here we can use two. One is a generic servlet, another one is a HTTP servlet. Extends HTTP servlet. Okay. Then next, do get. So do get, or you can use do post also, no problem. You can use service also, no problem. Okay, do get. So here two objects required to create. One is a request object, another one is a response object. So this request object can, through this request object, the information can be taken from the client. So web content is going to get the input, whatever the information is there on the form. Request means sending a form. So in the form, what we require, that will be there. Okay, so to get the form information, one object is required, that is a request object. So we can, that can be created by HTTP servlet request. So request, this is any name, user defined name, but one object is required to collect the form information to process that request. So that object creation is required. Then one more object creation. So what is that? After processing, we'll get a response. That means a result. Okay. So now server has to give back this result to the client. So how can this will be given? Okay, one more object is required. That is for handling the result output. So for input, request object; for output, response object. This is a response. Request means we require this type of service from the server. That is a request in the form of form. Okay, response. Yes, this is a response for your question. This is answer like that. Response. So two objects are required to create. One is a request object, another one is a response object, or we can call it as an input object and output object. No problem. But those can be created by this HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response. Okay, so that should be there in the do get or do post or service whatever. Okay, so here if any problems arise while creating the request object response object, so what is required? Throwing the exception. Okay, for that we have to throw two exceptions: servlet exception, IO exception. Okay, servlet exception, IO exception. So while creating these objects and while handling the input output, so these types of exceptions arise. Okay, then next thing is in the do get in this method, we have to set this one. That means set content to type text HTML. So whatever the information in the form of HTML page. So input and output are coming to server and going to the client in the form of HTML text or HTML. So that is required. So response dot set content to type. So response is given in the form of text on HTML. Okay. So next one more object is required to create to give the to print that text on the HTML. That is a out object that is can be created by using print writer. Print writer out equal to response dot get writer. Okay, these two are required. So next docu type, which type of document it is. Okay, this is required or not required, no problem. Doc type equal to directly you can write this one also out.println. So in between these parentheses, HTML head to title body hello world like this. Okay, how that information will be printed on the web page, which type of styles you require, you can write directly. Simply you can also write hello world within the starting of HTML and ending of the HTML. Okay, this is for printing, just to printing this hello world, this text on the page. Okay, so in Java we have a method called system.out.println, but here out.println, not usual system. We will tell you the difference. If it is a system.out.println, that will be printed on the terminal in the command line. Okay, so if we have to print it on the web page, that's why don't use the system out.println. If you use println, this output, whatever this output, the text will be on the page. If you write system.out.println, this output will be printed on the command line, the terminal. Okay, so after executing this, you will get uh, that output hello world. The type of message will be printed on the web page. Okay, clear. So the remaining we'll see in the next class. So please respond for the attendance.